Hi guys, thanks for joining. I wanted to just take this time. We've gone through a lot of effort. I know Abby within marketing has gone through a lot of effort of getting the market report put together. So we thought while we've got our in-person event, which is next week, we thought we'd be able to spread it out. That's only in London, so we have plenty of people across the country and across the world who can't necessarily make it. So we thought, well, why won't we get people from across the world who can't make it to the event to come and speak to us as well? So we've got Wayne, who's a partner at ISG and who's the global lead for Augmented Intelligence there. We've also got Kieran Gilmurray, who I'm sure everyone knows, who's CEO of Digital Automation and Robotics Limited, and a real advisor and influencer in the space. I think we've got Frank Casal on his way, but I think there's a couple of issues there, just network issues. It's always the way, isn't it? But I thought we'd just use this time to briefly go over some of the findings, to go over what people's thoughts are, really look towards the next year and see what we think is going to happen, some predictions. I'm sure any of my predictions we'll look at in a year's time and see that I'm speaking complete rubbish. But we all like to do it, don't we? The amount of blogs that you see at the start of the year always show this. But yeah, brief. I've given you both a brief intro, but I guess explain yourselves better.
I kind of liked your intro, Ollie. It doesn't get any better. But look, no, we love this space. It's created a tremendous amount of jobs over the last 10 years plus that never existed. And it's interesting just to see not only the volume of people in this category, but the number of people who are making a really positive contribution to the organizations that they're in by using enterprise automation and enterprise AI to positively impact them from a financial and a cost and a customer experience and employee experience point of view. And really interesting report, and great to see this coming out this year again.
Yeah, and just to echo Kieran's thoughts. So again, Wayne Butterfield, I'm beaming in from Dallas, Texas. So the Yorkshire Cowboy here. Again, I think this is my second or third opportunity to talk about the report. Kieran and I were saying before we got on air, it's always good to see whether we're being under or overpaid. And this year, again, really loads of great insights that come out of it. I've spent over a decade working in this. It's helped me build a career. It's helped many of the people I've worked with build careers. And so such an exciting area to work in. Never seems to get boring. Always loads of innovation. I'm really looking forward to delving into some of the questions that we've got lined up for you today.
Perfect. Brilliant. No, that's great. So we're just going to go through, there were four main topics within the market report that they're bracketed down to different subject levels. Abby, I think, has sent out all of the reports to everyone who's attending. So feel free to read through it, have a look at anything. Hopefully you've got a chance already. But yeah, so the first area was within the adoption of tech in business. What sort of tech are we seeing being adopted? What are we looking forward at? And what do we think will be? And Wayne, in what tech are you not seeing being spoken about at the moment? I know there's plenty of things on LinkedIn that are being banded around and spoken about loads as the future that's going to change everything. But what sort of tech are you seeing that you don't think is being spoken about enough?
I think I mentioned this on LinkedIn not too long ago, actually. I feel like maybe I'm in a bit of an echo chamber, and I'm sure that Kieran and many of us on the phone will concur with that. It feels like we're in front of a bit of a fire hydrant with regards to different technologies, whether it be IRPAAI, conversational AI. IDP is all over the place at the moment. So you cannot get away from generative AI right now. So there's lots of technologies that are being spoken about. I think the challenge is it's not us talking about technologies or whether there's certain technologies that are not being spoken about. I think we talk about technology too much. And I think what we really need to start thinking about is how we apply technology. And I think that's undervalued right now. Not only the application of technology, so how are we going to use these things, but also how are we going to better our agent experience, our employee experience as a result of using these technologies? Because certainly historically and probably over the last decade, I think we very much concentrated on the use of technology to generate operational efficiencies. That usually means cost cutting. You don't have to go very far right now to realize that there are a lot of tech organizations that are under significant pressure. There's probably as many traditional software developers, I would suggest, on the market now as there probably has been in the last 5-7 years. So there is loads going on, good, bad. From a specific technology perspective, we continue to still hear and read lots about robotic process automation. I'll be honest, I'm hearing a lot more negative than I am positive right now, which is I guess to be understood. Conversational AI still continues, I think, to bubble under the surface. Clearly, that is and has been an area that I have been interested in, during my previous roles in customer service and more recently as a consultant, because the use of language in just how we interact with each other, how we communicate with each other, how we get things done is absolutely core to the way that humans work right now. And so any technology that utilizes or replicates an ability to communicate, for me, is still going to be the one that transforms large areas of the way that we work in the future. And you only have to look at what generative AI has been producing recently to see how interested people are if you can move away from the quite robotic natures of existing chatbots and start to think about the role of truly generative responses as a result of either intelligent or semi-intelligent prompts, depending on what you're actually asking some of these large language models to do. But that's, large language models are not new. As an example, they have been out for a while, and yet we only really started talking about them globally in early December. Now it appears already that many are jumping on that particular bandwagon. And again, we talk about the technology. We're not necessarily talking about what are the actual benefits that we are going to gain as a result of being able to generate text from other bits of text. What is the actual business benefit of that? What is the employee benefit? What is the customer benefit? And I, again, said something the other day which stirred up a lot of debate, which was the benefit of a large language model from a efficiency perspective is no greater than something like IRPAAI. For different user cases in different departments for very different reasons, but the business benefit is similar. And I said that quite controversially because I think, again, sometimes we need to get past the coolness of what we do and think about what the actual benefits are for our employees, for our customers, for our shareholders. So I don't know whether that answers the specific question, but
I think it gave us a good amount. Yeah, I don't think I think it did. Quickly, Frank Cassell has joined. Frank is founder of the Institute of IRPAAI and Artificial Intelligence and the co-founder advisor of Rec3 that we've recently partnered on. But yeah, Frank, thanks for joining. And the question, I know you jumped in halfway through. The question to Wayne, which I'll open up to you two guys as well, is we're seeing a lot of tech that is being spoken about at the moment for the future. But is there any tech that we think should be getting more coverage in the space that might be underrated that's coming out in 2023 or going to be maybe more prolific?
I'll leave it to Kieran first. Yeah, I think he already had his workout this morning. I did not.
Dying of the cold here, turning up. Yeah, look, I subtle different view than Wayne here, and only very subtle because we all tend to see the same things. For me, there's nothing unusual in anything that we're seeing at this moment in time. So generative AI, as Wayne said, it's nothing new. This is version 3. It was actually, I think, a year, 2 years late, and we've all got excited about it. And it's all following the hype curve. RPA did it, EPM did it, you know, Cloud did it years ago. I suppose I've been in the industry about 3 decades. So there's nothing new and there's nothing surprises me. And normally it's a new method of doing something old that's been enabled, you know, just far more efficiently in a way that we don't think about. I oddly think we do, and we don't talk enough about tech or the benefits of tech. And I think Wayne's right. You know, technology is amazing. You're in a technology business, fantastic, but we're here to solve business problems. And the same mistakes have been made this year, and they will be with generative AI as they were 6-8 years ago with RPA, as they would 3 years ago with AI, as they were years ago with BPM or whatever you want to call it. And that's usual learning. Everybody gets really excited, overinflated expectations. Everybody jumped in, and remember they put the word RPA in it, then they put the word AI on it. Now it has to be generative on the back of it. And whilst that's all very good and it's brilliant and it gets the industry hype and that technology hype, what it does is it actually creates disillusionment at times because the tech can't possibly live up to the expectations that everyone has at that moment in time. And then for me, there's always a beautiful period of time is once we've gone through this manufactured trough of disillusionment, then we can actually get on with using the technology for the things that it's meant. I actually adore RPA when it's used in the right context. And I love the way the technology sector is moving. So now the RPA products, when we started, Wayne, you'll remember that 6-8 years ago, used to be able to automate a task. Now it's actually a platform or a suite of different technologies. And in the last year or two, as everybody has come into COVID and realized, my goodness, we need to go online, we need to be cloud, and a whole generation of companies that had resisted for years suddenly have had to come in and use technology. In about a year's time, they're going to be at cyber security because they'll have realized, okay, that doesn't work. They'll learn all the RPA lessons that we learned 4, 5, 6 years ago. But now they're starting to put, you know, APIs into the systems to connect cloud-based systems together. And you're going sort of, yeah, of course. BPM's becoming part of the system. Process mining's all becoming part of the system. But oddly enough, we don't talk about lots of technologies that are doing amazing things because the wonderful part is now we take them for granted because they all work. Go back, even something simple. We're doing a broadcast across the world. 8 years ago, we would have had to hire a technology studio, a sound engineer, or a cameraman or woman. You know, the amount of money it would have taken just to get this in place would have been phenomenal. And the 5 of us and everybody who's connected to this, and thank you for everyone to come and listen, doesn't even think anything about it. That's the best technology for me. All this amazing tech is there to allow us to do amazing things, to improve businesses, to improve customer experience and customer lives. And I can't wait to see what happens. The bit that I suppose we look at, and I say the more you look and the more you ask questions and the more you research, Ollie, the luckier you get. I actually love RPA, love what we're going to do with AI, love all the cloud-based applications that we're doing, love the integration platform as a service tech that's now really starting to come to fore, love conversational AI. As Wayne said, we need to put more tech in that works with the way we work. And this is the beauty. This tech is what we, and it wasn't my phrase, I wish it was, fast IT is what we've got. We're not expecting to have tech sitting there for 10 years, but we now have a range of technologies like RPA and AI and generative AI that anybody can pick up, create solutions, build on the backbone of, you know, solid SAP-based systems or SaaS-based systems or whatever else. And kind of like fashion, we're able to grab value out of it, use it for what it is, and then throw it away in 18 months' time and move on and move where the market goes. For me, what am I looking forward to next? Probably a lot of the immersive technologies. It's not that I want to sit here with a 5 pound in weight, and I don't know the US for that now. And I love the phrase, the Yorkshire Texan or the Yorkshire Cowboy. Wayne, I'm going to phrase you from that from now on. But I can't wait to see that starting to come through because I want to recreate more of the human experiences that I've got, but in real time. So I would like to see everybody here in 3D and be part of a virtual audience without having to put a headset on. But I definitely see a lot of immersive quality tech that reflects our real life experiences and augments that coming to the fore. And that I can't wait for to see what it does for us, for our customers, and for our businesses as well.
No, I completely agree. I think, as you say, if we can all sit here, if we can all sit around and go into an amphitheatre where we're all standing at lecterns and talking, it's the next step, isn't it? Frank, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, well, tough acts to follow. I guess let me attempt to maybe be a somewhat disruptive in a discussion on disruptive technology. I think the less we speak about technology, the more likely it will be embraced. And some of my colleagues here touched on that. You know, I read a short article at the Wall Street Journal a few weeks back, and they were talking about how politicians here in the States and Washington D.C. Living in a bubble, and I think those of us that are advisors, analysts, influencers in this space, we tend to inadvertently live in a bubble. You know, we hypothesize about things like productivity, and we have very academic and intellectual discussions about transformation and disruptive technology. And my sense for where I sit is the majority of the real business leaders out there, the majority of them are not as enthusiastic as we are. They're in competitive spaces. They're looking for better, faster, cheaper. I know that is not as sexy as we'd like it to be in the game, but at the end of the day, I'm doing deals every week. I'm around the table. Sometimes I'm just outside the room listening to the whispers. Many cases I'm in the room and they want better, faster, cheaper. So I think at the end of the day, it is about business impact. And if you're not two of the three of better, faster, cheaper, you're most likely to have a very lengthy technical discussion with a technical person at a company that really, really likes the technical discussion, but is likely not going to buy anything. So at the end of the day, it's about HR, it's about loan processing, it's about getting to market faster, it's about back office finance, and it's having those, I would say, use case specific, process specific, domain specific discussions with those people. I think that the deals that I see getting done, that there's just as much expertise at the table of finance and business case as at the end of the day, I think those are the deals getting done. I have empathy for all those on the sell side that are doing demos every day and talking about product features. These are mostly sales folks, I guess, having those discussions with technical people. A lot of those end up not going anywhere. Next thing, the other thing, just in limited time here, so I know you want to kick off and get rolling, is I agree with my colleague Kieran. He knows I'm big on immersive AR, VR. Mixed reality, I think, is going to have a significant impact. I won't say ChatGPT 3. Yes, yes, yes. I'll get there last. It's tough not to say that. I know Wayne mentioned that before. Immersive is going to be a big deal. I think it's just about enterprise ready, still experimental, but for those of you out there who are willing to take the baby step, whether it be in corporate communication or training or education, or there's a whole bunch of things you could do there. Product demos, virtual marketplaces, very, very cool. ChatGPT, I think I'm confident is not enterprise ready. However, I'm extremely confident it'll be as much of a boon to entrepreneurs and wannabe entrepreneurs out there as anything else on the planet today. I just think there's going to be more millionaires made in the next 24 months. It could be individuals that are doing side hustles and gigs. So if you're not familiar with it, do that. Last thing I'll say is I think we're approaching a tipping point of what I've been incorrectly forecasting now for 10 years, which is digital labor, meaning this shift from software designed to assist a knowledge worker to software that is intelligent enough and adaptive enough to emulate a knowledge worker. That to me is, I believe it's all coming together. And hi, Abby.
Hi, Frank.
Yeah, I agree with you, Frank. I think, as you say, that those three, the better, faster, cheaper, it's the holy grail, isn't it? To get all of them together. I think we've all been in service industries before, and you have the triangle, and it's you can have two of them, but you can't have all three. If you want it better and you want it faster, it's not going to be cheaper, and if you want it cheaper and you want it faster, it's not going to be better, and so on and so forth. And I think if you can get a software that does all three, that's when that software company is going to absolutely nail it and just be light years ahead of everyone else. In terms of our next section, is the labour trends. I know that one of the things that people know our market report for is our salary surveys. We work with a lot of clients who are looking at what they should be paying, a lot of candidates who are looking at what they should be getting paid and what they're worth. So that's all in this section. Feel free to have a look through the graphs. We're not going to just talk through them because I think everyone can read them for themselves and get what they need to. But I think what we are going to look at is sort of what's in demand. I think RPA, all of the RPA skills, whether it's a BA, developer, architect, or on the sales side, are all still really in demand. I don't think that's changed. If anything, I'd say they're more in demand. But I think the difference now isn't necessarily the skills as such. It's the quality. It's the quality of those people. I think we're now at a point where more and more people have the base level skills, with the amount of free training, with the amount of areas that you can work in and different self things you can do. There are plenty of people who, before they've even started a job within RPA, will have some semblance of understanding of RPA, some understanding of the development of it. So I think really what people are looking for now, what hirers are looking for now, are people with practical understanding, people who are working on it in a business, and then maybe they're working on it outside of a business. They're doing their own personal projects with it. And then the other side, looking at the candidates, what the candidates are looking for and what their demand is. As you can see from the graphs, the salaries have gone up. If you compare them to last year, people are still getting paid more, which isn't surprising looking at inflation across the world and looking at, I guess, how much importance companies are stressing on RPA, on intelligent automation now. But I think the areas that they're really focused on is making sure they're getting paid fairly. Remote work is still really big. It's still, I think most people have come to expect it now. I think a lot of people are almost saying no, just offhand, if it's in the office 5 days a week or anything like that, because they're just not used to it at their current companies now. It's not something that it feels alien to them. And then the other area that when we speak to candidates, they're really interested in is what's next. Sure, I can do RPA, I can do the rules-based processing side of things, but what's the company looking at in terms of intelligent automation? Are they looking at conversational AI? Are they looking at process mining? Are they looking at all of these different things so that I can upskill myself while I'm in the business, so that I can learn new things? Because I've already got this sort of in the bag and I want to be able to take that next step up. I don't know what you think, Kieran. I don't know how you've been seeing the markets.
Yeah, look, I don't think markets change too much over the decades. When labor's in high demand, guess what? It costs more money. When labor's in low demand, guess what? Organizations pay less and remove some of the benefits. What we're seeing at the moment in the great layoffs in a lot of the tech sectors, and there's lots of hires, and this is the bit we forget, there's as many companies as hiring as there is laying off, but we see these big news stories. I think it's a tremendous shame. I think they've got themselves in that position by overhiring, by land banking both people and building space. And because of all of what we know as the environmental effects out there, inflation, cost of living, war, whatever else, they've now got themselves in a position where there may be too many staff. The oddity is, and I've seen it so many times, is that in 18 months' time, they'll be back hiring again. And therefore, all the staff that took for some of these big companies 5 and 7 interviews to get in the door, who are the cream of the cream, and everybody who's hiring comes in with a very high bar. They want people with great tech skills. They want people with great emotional intelligence. Now we're working remotely. They want great communicators as well. They want people who have AI and RPA, and because we're just talking about the tech sector and everything else. And that costs money. You know, getting people on the cheap doesn't work. I actually expect over the next period of time, you know, things will settle down in the economy. They always do. I think I've been through 4 recessions, 3 property crashes, you know, so it's kind of in an unusual way, deja vu over and over again. I just think what a waste of talent. You know, why not, if you're making 20 billion a year, and yes, you have to keep your shareholders happy, keep those people on, employ them in whatever. It's going to take 18 months to get someone to be highly effective anyway. You know, governments I would love to see putting more into education. So when we do come out of the bump in the road over the next 12 months, you come out with a highly educated workforce in all of your countries to allow you to do more digital, more technical and whatever else. Where I'm seeing some of the skills gaps, and again, it's interesting, the roles. BAs, you know, having a really great BA, I'm just not seeing mad amounts of those coming on the market. Even shorter supply for me is great QAs. Now, some of that will be solved by technology. We're starting to see generative code. So in other words, find it very hard to get the code to go wrong in the first place, which is brilliant. Subject to, I always like everybody having the basis of skills as well, because you could be writing something from the black box, as it's called, without actually realizing how inefficient, insecure, whatever else it is. But I'd love to see great QAs and great BAs appearing. But now we have people who have amazing skills. We just want to make sure that we keep them employed, as opposed to pushing them out of firms that are making huge quantities of cash as is.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And Frank, I know you've got the institute, so you're tapped in fairly well to the network and the market. What have you been seeing?
So I'm seeing the gap closing. Well, let me back up. We tend to think about the buyers, right? Almost as if this one monolithic group. However, we all know there's a big difference between digital native companies and then, let's say, more traditional Fortune 500 companies. So the digital native companies, if you've ever done a deal or been an advisor or done any business with a company like a Spotify, it's the tempo and the acceptance and the speed of that is going to be so much different than if you did a deal with Citibank or JP Morgan, right? No matter what you're talking about, it's a whole different dynamic. I see now that I believe we're officially at the point of where the pace of change is far extends beyond the ability for any traditional company to be able to keep up. And if you look at their decision process, the market is somewhat evolving. You could argue every 6 months. The typical decision process of the typical Fortune 500 company for any kind of major decision is about 12 to 24 months. So they never, ever, ever catch up. They never catch up. So think of it. So think of what happens now. Things keep changing. Cool new stuff comes out every 6 months, maybe every 3 months as we get into 2024, 25. The digital native players make big moves in their respective spaces. So I think that's what we're going to see. I think we're going to see the map changing as far as competitive edge of these young born in the cloud companies having a big advantage versus companies that have, what I call the ball and chain of legacy. There's just too much old stuff, too many people, too much fear of change, too much of a risk averse mentality. Could take 3 or 4 months just to get a pilot approved, while the digitally native companies are making, short decisions in 30, 60 days. So I think that's what we're going to see. And if you're an investor, I'd revisit your portfolio because it's going to be really the revenge of the digital native companies.
Yeah, no, I definitely see what you mean. I completely understand. I think it's one of those precipices and turning points, and you see them all the time, don't you? That not necessarily the earliest adopters ever, but the people who are ready to take the risk and adopt it are always going to win in markets like this. And Wayne, I know on the report you mentioned about labour trends. You mentioned about cobots and this sort of stuff, maybe changing how we work together. What are your thoughts on it?
Two thoughts, I guess. First one is those people that have the skills, the soft skills to be able to negotiate an organization to get things done are going to be those that I think are in more high demand. To Frank's point, the average decision time, 12 to 24 months, big change. Okay, if you as an individual are able to shorten that timescale in a large organization, then that's certainly something that an organization should be interested in. Now, that is not necessarily something that you can put on your CV. It's not necessarily something that you can see in a person. So there's a lot of skills that need to be in demand, that people need to have in order, I think, to accelerate an organization's journey on automation. You need people who are willing to take a little bit of a risk on themselves as much as anything else. You need people to be able to solve problems, to negotiate, to be able to understand political landscapes. And I think what we found is a lot of the automation leaders have been of a slightly more junior role, who are still learning their craft. And experience is key. You mentioned it around, you can learn learn a lot of stuff online now. The reality is, and I talk about this, war wounds, right? There is nothing that's going to teach you more than almost getting fired, or by working with a mentor. You know, there's learning how to automate, and then there's learning how to work in an organization. And I think we're getting to a point now where we need those two things to collide in order for automation to truly be able to transform in organizations. Otherwise, it's going to be drip fed like it is at the moment for many organizations. So the labor market continues to be interesting. I think it's not just the technical skills that people need to have. We as an industry need to have business nous. You know, we need to learn how to play the political games of an enterprise, in big and small. So when we collide those two skills, I think that's when we'll see a bit more progress. So a bit more on the softer side, which you can't necessarily learn in a PowerPoint or online. So again, loads of growth for us as an industry, I would say.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think everyone sort of touched on the emotional intelligence side and this sort of thing. I think as everyone's talking about with the growth of generative AI and all of this sort of thing, you like to think that that's the one thing that it can't do. You like to think that that's the thing that it's not necessarily going to be as great as, or at least that you can stand out with, and you can make relationships and all of this sort of stuff yourself, because it's a human to human interaction, isn't it? So our next area is within
Ollie, can I interrupt you, Ollie?
Oh,
Can I
yes.
I think this might be important, maybe of some value. So just playing off of what Wayne just mentioned, and you're just putting a cherry on top there. I remember hearing a friend of mine was giving a presentation a couple of years back, and he said something I initially did not agree with, but ultimately I believed he was correct. He said, those that are focused on the how will always work for those that are expert in the what and the why. And I thought that was a little elitist, but ultimately I believe that is the case. And if you look at, and this is from a career perspective, maybe some career advice for those here listening. The how is becoming almost table stakes. It's almost becoming magic. It's almost becoming just push a button and the how is done. So the power, whether you're on the buy side or the sell side, or just anyone with a job or a career, or even an entrepreneur or an advisor, I think if you're in the how business, you're in trouble. Begin to shift to what and why, because the how is literally push a button, and it's the how to launch this, how to develop that. You need a white paper, you need some light coding, you need a business plan, you need to validate a strategy. But those that have those that are in the kind of the vision department, those that are in the identifying markets, those that are really good at building relationships and trust, that's where I see the action. I'm not sure what the colleagues think, but I think that's I have 4 kids, and one is still in high school, and I wonder what's it going to be like when he graduates. Is he going to be in the how business or the what business? If he's in the how business, I'm going to have to give him a job with me. I mean, he's going to have to keep him on allowance. It gets expensive.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. So we've had some questions coming in, and this sort of stuff keep them coming. Our next area is on businesses in 2023 and what they can do. Someone here has asked, is there any traction for automation as a service for SMBs? And our question was, if I'm a business who's done nothing yet, where do I start? So I think they probably fit quite nicely together. Kieran, what would be your advice for someone who's just looking at this and being like, it just seems like a lot of things, a lot of letters that I don't understand?
Yeah. So let me try and dance around this a little bit, not avoid anything. As Wayne said earlier on, look, we sometimes sit in a bubble in our technology space, and we talk about all these terms and assume everyone knows what they mean. Even terms like IRPAAI, that's been around, 20 years now. And remember, IRPAAI is the latest incantation of automation and scripting and Surface or whatever else. So again, I worry about that we're talking in language that people don't understand. But, and let's do the big but here, it has been, as blindingly damned obvious as anything over the last 20 years that digital is going to play a massive part of any business organization. So if you're a CEO, a CTO, a CIO, a CFO, or whatever it is who runs your organization, or a board member who has not seen digital smashing into everything that we've been doing since the year 2000, then I would question your competency to sit on any business board. So therefore, what is the excuse? And I use the word excuse deliberately. So I make allowance for someone who's new to the market because they have to learn these things. But my 18-year-old son had a digital business since he was 11, and therefore I think that the skills that you need to come with to work are not only, as we learned over the years, finance skills and emotional intelligence and leadership skills and coaching and mentorship and whatever else, and that's at every level. If you're not walking in with some technical competency, then you are going to face digital Darwinism in the next numbers of years, and there's no excuse for it. So is it a capability gap then? So then that's okay. Go and hire someone who will deliver the stuff for you. Go and recruit through yourself or other companies. Is an investment gap? Okay, go out to market, and there's outcome-based providers at this moment, or gain share model providers who'll actually step in and won't charge you a penny to get investment. Is it that I put my head in the sand and I've not been bothered over the last couple of years, and now I've reached a burning platform? And oddly enough, that is something that I've seen time and time and time again, is that companies allow themselves to end up in a burning platform situation, and then they panic, and then they react, and then they make choices around firing staff. Your business strategy should include digital. If it doesn't, shame on you to a large degree. Your business strategy should include a digital strategy. And if it doesn't, again, shame on you. And your business strategy should include a people strategy that has been preparing you for the last 5, 10, or 15 years to get to where we are today, because there's no surprises. So if you don't know this, by goodness, jump on the bus. If you can't do it, go and hire someone who does. There's lots of folks out there able to do it. And if you can't afford to do it, or think you can't, go and buy an outcome-based model provider or a gain share model, because there's very little reason not to. But if you don't want to do all that, then sit there. And I don't wish this in anyone, but watch yourself go out of business. And that makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think it's making people understand that the barrier to entry is as low as it's ever been to RPA, and it's not a situation where it's only the resource for the big boys now. It's only big enterprise and financial services that can make use of it, but it's anyone. Frank, what are your thoughts?
Well, I remember when I first launched the Institute for Robotic Process Automation, and that was before we added the AI at the end. It was all this. It was about 10 years ago. And I remember people coming to me and saying, hey, this is great. We're interested in RPA. We're looking at RPA. And of course, I was delighted, because that was kind of the space that we were moving into. However, many of those early adopters struggled. And I think because the discussion was about RPA, it's kind of started there. So I guess it's like in any space. If you come in in a second or third wave, on one hand, you may feel like you missed a lot. On the other hand, realistically, you will benefit from a lot that we've all learned. So I would argue that if you were starting today, it should be, first and foremost, it should be about the business. What business impact are you seeking? And then right behind that, it's about process. What is the process? And I would say baseline the process, optimize the process, and do all you need to do to make that happen. And then last but not least, bring in the tech. Opposite of what many did for the past 10 years. They brought in the tech, and then they said, hey, let's find a process. And then they say, let's figure out how we're going to get the CFO to sign off on this thing, because this vague term productivity doesn't mean anything. We can't get the math to work on the productivity, right? So the deals I see being done now that are more, I would say, enlightened deals that seem to be playing out much better are business and then process, tech last.
Yeah, no, I agree, and it's oddly relevant, because we had another question come through, which I was going to pose to Wayne. I feel like you're fairly well poised to answer this, but I think some of it's being answered by Frank. Then someone said, right now there are many automation agencies on the market that use different technologies and providers. However, many of them deliver the technology, but at the end, it doesn't add value to the customer and makes them mistrust automation. How can we tackle this challenge and regain credibility from customers? Thanks, Eric, for that.
What Frank said. In short, I think, and I was, I was part of that very early wave, right? 2010, very much saw that. Actually, I tell a lie. No, what we did is we actually did what Frank said, which I think is why the user case at Telefonica worked really well, because we process improved to our nth degree. We got 22, 23% efficiency in our offshore operations. And then we were like, oh, what now? So we'd actually done what Frank said. And then we knew that the option was, in this instance, it was IRPAAI. Now, most organizations are too impatient to do that. You can say it's the service providers, but actually a lot of organizations are too impatient. And you know what? You only need to have people who are egging on each other, like, you should do this, oh, we really need to do this, you should do this, we really need to do this. And I think that combination is what's caused us to maybe rush to the technology first. The reality is change is hard and change takes time. And one of the benefits of something like IRPAAI is that we don't have to be included in a 24-month change roadmap for X, Y, and Z to happen in order for us to gain this improvement over here. And so we drank the Kool-Aid, right? We drank the Kool-Aid because we were too impatient to deal with traditional change. So I think as much as we can say it is the technology providers, and of course they're there to sell software, it can be the service providers who are there to sell a service. I think we as businesses also do need to take some accountability in that we are also interested in trying to make change quicker than our organization is perhaps geared up to do. I do think we need to look at process first. I do think we need to really re-evaluate work before we automate. To Frank's point, I do think we probably do need to slow things down a bit. And I'm impatient, so you very rarely would hear me say we need to slow down. But I do think we do need to concentrate a bit more on process first. Kieran mentioned process, task mining. I would add communications mining in there, conversational intelligence. Let's really get the data to show us what today looks like. Because we've based a lot of our automation efforts to date on opinion that has bias. Either has bias in time or bias because of the role that we complete, but there's loads of bias in our business cases historically. That's then led to poorer outcomes. Those poor outcomes are what have led to the drop, I would say, in confidence. So stop, take a step back, make sure the data is accurate that we're basing any assumption on. And once we've process improved it to our nth degree, then let's automate the hell out of it. That was what I would suggest.
Ollie, I would say, just very briefly, there's outcome-based vendors and there's gain share vendors. And largely, those two contracts say, if we don't deliver what we say we're going to deliver, then you don't pay. For too long, we've sat in the time and materials model that means that vendors get paid regardless of the business outcomes that they do or don't deliver. And therefore, I think it's a change in approach. The rules are known, the technology is known, but you need to go into a win-win relationship as well. So if you go in, knowing that something won't work, shame on you, that'll end a good long-term relationship. If you don't open up as a company to your vendor and remove that information asymmetry and explain all the things that are there to give them the best chance to succeed, then shame on you as the organization, because there's a win, lose, lose, win, and that won't work either. I would just slightly alter what Wayne says. And again, just subtle difference. All the technology that we need exists today. If we didn't have any more technology for the next 10 years, we have more than enough technology to transform businesses. I actually blame us as people. As Wayne said earlier on, the politics that still exists inside of organizations, the inertia that still exists, that sometimes appalls me. There's lots of reasons for it. We don't paint a bright and shiny picture of what a glorious digital future looks like. We don't bring people on the journey in the press every day. It's about people losing their job because of technology. Well, all those things come in. It's not going to encourage me to work with you really, really well. I actually sometimes think that we put the millstone or the anchor around all of the projects by constantly referring to the past and wanting to do it faster. But, faster crap is still faster crap, and therefore there's some semblance here that says, actually, go back to what the three of us have been saying. What is the business strategy that you're trying to execute? How do you need to execute that strategy? And the answer is probably with a lot of digital technology. And now, how do we build that to deliver amazing customer experiences where the cost of production is less than the cost that the customer, or the value that the customer is willing to pay us? And how do we bring everybody on that journey with us to ensure that we actually deliver a bright and shiny future? Because if you're not actually changing, then that's where the problems lie. And I would disagree a tiny bit with Frank. The new companies, what we've discovered over the last couple of years, have had amazing technology ideas, but none of them have made money. And now we're back to basics, which is the stuff that you're doing delivering cash in excess of cost or not? Hence why a lot of the money that was been floated or flushed into the market is disappearing. I certainly don't agree with legacy businesses. And I have to say, in all my years in employment, I'm still appalled at the politics that exists with inside businesses. But it's up to us as humans not to do that. And therefore, the technology's there, but is the appetite and the will and the desire there?
No, I completely see where you're coming from there. I think, Wayne, as you mentioned before, with needing to know what you want from it, I think we've all had this where you'll get a call from, whether it's the head of IT, whether it's the CEO, and they decide to bring IRPAAI on as their pet project. And you have the conversation with them and you're like, why do you want it? And they're like, well, they've got it and I hear how good it is, so I want it. And as soon as the call starts, it's not going to end well, because they're not doing it for the right reasons. They're doing it to they're a magpie, aren't they? They want another shiny piece of technology that they can shout about and this sort of thing. I think in terms of the next step, our last section was looking forward. And Frank, picture the scene. It's a year's time. We're sitting here again. We're talking about the 2024 market report. What sort of technology do you think we're going to be talking about then that we aren't talking about now, or that maybe has moved on in leaps and bounds?
Well, it's a safe bet would be that it's all going to be about generative AI. And even if you just replace that maybe with even a more broad-based term, just meaning, I would just say major strides in AI. I think you'll hear, I believe you'll hear less about robotic process automation. I believe the primary role of RPA will just be as kind of, I've called for 10 years now, digital gateway drug. It's just a place to dabble. You want to spend $20,000 and get started and not have to call in a favor from somebody in contracts. They get started and see the magic, but then in order to get some real impact, you're going to have to move up, I think, into the space where things are intelligent and adaptive. So I think it's going to be all about AI, and I think it's all going to be all about I'll call VR plus, metaverse, AR, VR, mixed reality. I believe, knowing that no one ever checks to see if these forecasts are correct. So this is being recorded, so we have to watch what we say. But I think that's close. Maybe those are two safe bets, but maybe my colleagues have better forecasts than I do. Nothing too game changing there with what I said.
I don't know, Wayne. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts in a year's time? What will we be talking about? And if everyone says ChatGPT, I'm going to jump out the window.
Exactly the things what we're talking about today, and what we've been generally talking about for the last 5-10 years. Generative AI is the big buzzword right now, but it's literally been around as a buzz for about the last 2 months in reality. It didn't necessarily come out of nowhere, right? It has been around for a while. We're on GPT-3. We're about GPT 3.5, looking at 4, but we're not, even OpenAI are not the only ones who have been playing around with this capability. I still, for me, I think it's probably where we're going to be talking about automation. So let's ignore the technology and let's start thinking about departments. I could not be less enthused about a finance department automation. I'm really sorry. I'm sorry if anyone's on finance here. it does not inspire me. Like I like to push boundaries. I like to do cool things. Going into finance and redefining a finance department has and will not ever inspire me. Give me a contact center any day. Why? Because there's just so many different things that you can do there, so many different technologies. So a contact center and what we can do in that space, conversational AI, there probably is a role of generative AI in there, in the moment assistance, conversational intelligence. Yes, there'll be a little bit of attended RPA, loads of great stuff happening in there, right? It's the same technologies, just used in different ways, in combinations that are creating different experiences for both customer and agents. So that for me is, there's going to be a big push there. The one that I think, again, that is going to change, and I've got a good friend over here in Texas who's in comms, and she's constantly texting me now. She's like, "Oh, have you seen this? Have you seen this?" The comms department, and she's in global comms for global organizations. She is enamored by the use of generative AI right now. Marketing, like comms and marketing. If you ever went in there with conversational AI or RPA historically, they'd be like, well, we've got this 0.26 FTE process over here, and that's one and done, and that's it. That's done. Training. So let's almost ignore some of the text. I think the technology has been spoken about a lot, but let's look at where else in the business now we're going to be able to create some wonderful experiences, some new efficiencies. And those who probably feel like they've missed out quite a bit in this world of automation are suddenly going to be opened up, and they're going to get to have their play day as well. So I think it's more departments that we're going to see in 23 as opposed to new technologies. Kieran, I don't know what your thoughts are. Keen to hear you as well, mate.
Yeah. So let me do the despair first of all. We'll be having the same damn conversation next year as we had last year, as we had 3 years ago and 5 years ago, about this amazing technology is going to transform the world. And we go through the hype curve and whatever else, and we come back to, are businesses willing to change or not? Let me ignore technology, just as Wayne was saying earlier on. Do you know where I'd love us to be in 12 months' time? I would absolutely love that instead of dealing with the past, and we do have to deal with it, is that we talk about technology, we talk about ethics, we talk about the capabilities these things can deliver, but we design brilliant businesses that instead of worrying about the past entirely and focusing on that and explaining to ourselves why we can't move forward, but we design the business that will work in the next 3 or 5 years, using all of the technology that we've got that's highly available. And I like what Frank says, you just have to dip your toe in the water to actually start to learn about these technologies, or get someone in who can help you learn about these things, because they will be impactful. I don't mean they're working now. It would be a semi-risk to put generative AI in the current version in to write all your media scripts, because you can tell it. Although I responded to Whelan's article the other day, I think it was, or maybe someone else's, how can you tell generative AI in a person? It was going, well, the spelling will be correct and the grammar will be correct and it'll be interesting, and the other stuff that was written by the human, but it's like there's all the stuff we need there. So why not design a great business strategy that's enabled by great technology and digital, that's actually enabled by great people who are brought along the journey, who've been explained what the future looks like, who are treated as a valuable asset inside of an organization. And if I could see an organization, regardless of new, old, or in between, that actually sets out to generate real cash, create a massive culture inside of an organization where change is expected and people want to change because they're brought in the journey, and the people strategy team have got them ready for the next generation and the next generation and the next generation of work, I'd be deliriously happy. But we'll find those unicorns next year as we did this year. All the tech's there, all of the capabilities there. New stuff comes all the time to make it better, quicker, faster. We know what's coming. My one is, I would love to see in 12 months' time businesses taking massive action on tech, on people, and on business strategy as well, to create really successful businesses that stimulate the economy, that stimulate jobs, so we can talk about the next generation of technology and the next people who are doing amazing things, and talk endlessly about the next technology companies as much as we can, and how amazing the world of tech and business is together.
Perfect. No, that's brilliant. Right. just before we finish, I've got a couple of questions and I need quick answers. I need quick answers from people. I'm not going to take long ones. So, James, is there a need to reimagine the relationship between businesses and suppliers, i.e. the contracts and the statement of work? Both are trying to achieve different things in the time, cost, and quality model, but ultimately transformation is a journey and requires a partnership. What do you think? Wait, Frank, Kieran. Kieran, we'll go Kieran first. What do you think?
Yes, is the short answer. The traditional time materials model ends up with someone losing out. The downside of that is you move purely to gain share and purely to outcome-based model where you're not actually looking after your supplier as well, and you don't tell them a lot of things. I think a very even win-win relationship needs to be created. The rules of the game are known. The technology is all known. The business knows its own work. To get together on a gain share model or an outcome-based model that's fair for both parties, hand over your cash when they inevitably deliver because they can, and have a long and fruitful partnership together where you constantly innovate to bring new value to the market and to that business.
Perfect. Thanks for the question, James. And another one from Philip Wayne, quick. So does this mean that there's less of a future for traditional low-code RPA in the future and that the market is shrinking?
Is it shrinking? I think we'd be amiss to say that the future of RPA is and has not just been RPA for a while. I can't see how we can continue to see significant growth in the world of pure RPA as a standalone capability. However, many of the big players have realized that it's now a platform play, and there will be a role for this in your toolkit as we move forward. For those who are purely focused on RPA right now, diversify your skill set and make yourself a Swiss Army knife of a developer across multiple different tools and disciplines, and you will have a safe and secure career for many a year to come, I am sure.
And I'd like to add to that. I think just because you're not hearing about it, it doesn't mean it's shrinking. I think there's still plenty of people that are using it, plenty of companies that are expanding it within their business and bringing it on. But because we've got so many more things that we're talking about now, which might be more exciting, you might hear less of it. But I think in no way does that mean that it's shrinking. But I think that brings everything to a close. I think I want to thank everyone for coming. We've got our event where we can meet in person about this next Wednesday in London. If anyone wants any help for that or any info, just message me and I'm happy to help out. Likewise, if there's any questions that I haven't managed to get to, we'll get to them. Email me, happy to talk whenever. But thanks so much for it, guys. Really appreciate all of your time and effort on this. Thanks so much for coming, and I'm sure I'll speak to everyone soon.
Excellent.
Have fun. Thanks,
everyone.
guys.
Thank you. Bye.